yesterday, I told you that the purpose of this radian measure was to have what's considered a real number measure. And that's important when you are dealing with formulas. So we are going to learn some formulas in this section, start looking at some scenarios, and they will only work if you're using radians. If you try to plug in degrees, you will get the wrong answer every time. So that is one important thing for us to remember. What we talked about yesterday, we did theta equals S over R. So if you flip that around, if you just multiply your R over, that means that S is equal to R theta. In other words, if you are trying to find the arc length, the distance traveled on the outside of the circle, you just have to take your radius times your angle. But the angle has to be in radians for that to work. Okay? So that's the same formula from yesterday, just flipped around, and that gives us the arc length formula. In other words, your arc length is proportional to your angle. As your angle gets bigger, so does your arc length, which should make sense if you're thinking about a circle. The bigger the angle, the bigger the distance on the outside of the circle. So let's just take a look at this example. A circle has a radius of 25.60 centimeters. How many significant digits is that? 4. Find the length of the arc intercepted by a central angle having each of the following measures. So I just want the length of the arc. So all we are going to do is S equals R theta. My radius is 25.6. My theta, 7 pi over 8. I prefer to leave my answers in terms of pi whenever possible, so I'm going to do 25.6 times 7 over 8. So you could write this several different ways. You could put 22.4 pi. You could say that's 112 pi over 5. If you multiplied out the pi, it's like 70.3717. So lots of different ways you can write it. Again, in general, I prefer pi's unless it's a nasty decimal anyway. If you're going to have to round it anyway, you might as well multiply in the pi. What units would I put on that? Arc length is a distance, so it'll have the same units as your radius. So this would be centimeters. So all those answers are equivalent. Okay. B. Theta is equal to 54 degrees. What did I need to do there? Change it to radians. You cannot use the formula in degrees. So the very first thing I'm going to do is multiply by pi over 180. So that gives me 3 pi over 10. I like to always write out what formula I'm using. Later in this chapter, we're going to have a few other formulas as well. So it's good practice, and it helps me a lot if I'm following your work, if I just know what formula you're plugging things into. So I'm just using S equals R theta. My radius is still 25.6. Theta, 3 pi over 10. So again, several ways you could write your answer. It's 7.68 pi, or you could put 192 pi over 25, or even multiply out your pi. And my units are still centimeters. Is that one okay? probably do one more, and then that might be, let's see how much time we have after that. Erie, Pennsylvania is approximately due north of Columbia, South Carolina. The latitude of Erie is 42 degrees north, while that of Columbia is 34 degrees north. Find the north-south distance between the two cities. And I gave you the radius of the Earth. That was nice of me. Was nice, yeah. So. Do we all agree that the Earth is round? Okay. I'm just going to throw that out there. We're going to say it's round. So really what I'm talking about is two different cities on here. And I want to know how far apart they are. So I am looking for my S. Okay. I know my radius, but we have to figure out our theta. I gave you the latitude of each of these. How would you find your theta? Subtract them. Theta is just the angle between them. So if I subtract those, 42 minus 34, 8 degrees. What do I need to do with that? Change it. So times pi over 180. And we get 2 pi over 45. So now I want the distance between them. That's my S equals my R, 6,400, times my theta, 2 pi over 45. Now you could put this as a fraction. If I were actually measuring a distance, would I say, it's so many pi? Probably not. I'd probably multiply it out. So sometimes I might ask you to answer in significant digits. You could multiply out your pi and answer it that way. So different ways that we might answer. What would my units be? Kilometers. I'm going to stop there. I think I could do one more, but I'll save that one to review on Monday.